What is going on? You are watching, listening to Tags Live talk about gay sex, the live version. This is episode 281. I'm your host, Steve V. Cody is out this week. He'll be back next week. But joining me is friend to Tags, Sebastian Lacaze. Sebastian on the West Coast.
I'm doing great. Thanks
for
No, that's it. And I feeling great. Thanks for having me.
Well, absolutely. Thanks for doing this. You recall has a podcast that's out, Chasing Happy, as well as a short film that's going to start playing the festivals called Disciple. A little later in the show, we're going to be talking about that. Also in this show, we have two guests, Ben and Logan, and we're going to be talking about their polyamorous relationship and really deep diving into that. I'm so excited about that. But before we get to that, Sebastian, today is National Nude Day, and you're in your underwear for one thing, but
why did I know that you were going to bring that up? I had a feeling.
Did you know there's a day for everything, but did you know it's National Nude Day?
I mean, I'm not surprised. You're right. There's a day for literally everything. For it's Gray Cat Day. It's Puppy Day. It's I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So National Nude Day. I was talking on Tag's podcast the other day about my first time being on the beach and being nude and how it felt. And yeah, I'm for it. I'm going to go back. So I will report back on that. But we've got to get into a couple of hot topics, and I couldn't help but celebrate the Emmy nominations were yesterday, and there were so many representations of our LGBTQ, including MJ Rodriguez of Pose, making history as being the first trans actor ever being nominated for an Emmy. Besides that, though, Billy Porter was nominated for Best Actor. The whole show, Pose, was nominated for Best Dramatic Series. Additionally, there were some great, outstanding supporting actor categories. I don't know if you watch SNL ever, but there's the actor on there was nominated. He's gay. He is, I'm just looking for his name real quick. I can't seem to find it. Yes, right. Mm-hmm. Which I think is really awesome. I wish I could find his name real quick. Also, I don't know if you are watching Hacks, but such a great show with Gene Smart.
No, I have not gotten into that, but I've heard great things about it.
Stars Hannah Eibender and Carl Clemens Hopkins, who I did slip into his DMs today. I just have to say that to congratulate him because he's hot. And both are bisexual. Hannah and Carl is gay. I just had to ask you, though, Sebastian, as an actor that have done television, Broadway throughout the years, now you really are working on other things. What's your thoughts about seeing all this representation right now being nominated for Emmys?
I mean, it's incredible. I guess I definitely had wished for this time to come. It's crazy that it's happening. I mean, I love it. I'm so here for it, and I have supported the trans community in the work that I've been creating on my own since 2011 when I started hustling. In the third season, I saw that was an underrepresented part of our community, and so I just wanted to figure out a way to work that into the show. And there's also a trans character in the short that's in the festivals right now. So I am so in support of trans actors playing trans characters and telling their stories. And I think it's super important that that work is getting recognized at that level. It's super important. And if you follow me on social or any of the messaging that I am currently expressing right now. I've said this before, but I feel like the queer community and people of color are on the front lines of evolution. And I feel like we serve such a purpose in moving humanity forward, in helping us break out of these constructs from the past, these very limiting constructs of what gender is, what sexuality is, what race is. I think that is such an important part of moving us into a not only higher consciousness, but unity consciousness. I mean, that's so to me, these nominations and this recognition just feeds that messaging so much. And I think is like proof to me that how important the community is and how representation matters.
Really matters. And I think that for so long, that question of, are you mad that, like, say, for example, Halston, played by Ewan McGregor, who's really great in it, but the question of how do we feel for so long about a straight person playing a gay man or a trans character, which has happened in the past. I think Transparent or was a show where it was just a straight person. I was always like, well, it doesn't really matter to me as long as the actor is good and represented. But here we are actually seeing really good trans actors that are not only good, gay actors, Billy Porter, bisexual actors, and not only good, being recognized, like you said, with a nomination. And it's like, if you open up, like you were saying, the floodgates to talent and opportunity, you will find that we're talented too. So I think it's refreshing.
It's so refreshing. And yeah, it is sort of like, where do we go from here in the sense of actors playing what roles? Because I think it is important for gay actors to be playing gay characters, just like it is important for trans actors to be playing trans roles and telling their stories. We need to be telling our own stories as well. And yeah, I mean, does that mean that straight actors should play only straight roles? I don't think we have to define it, but I think it's really, right now, it's about
it's a shift,
telling
right?
our own stories, yeah. And I think that's what's really important. I don't think it means that gay actors can't play straight roles and vice versa. But I think right now, in this moment that we're in, I think it's important to have people who are gay playing gay roles and people who are trans playing trans roles, so that it just widens the understanding of the community and who the people are,
Absolutely. Well, we got to move on before we bring on our guests in just a little bit. But I couldn't help but have to ask you this question on Tag's podcast the other day, episode 280. We were talking I was at the beach, and the person I was with, we were just beach talk, and my friend asked me, because somebody came up to us and said, where are you from? And he asked another question, how did you guys meet? But in particular, the where are you from question, my co-host Jeremy Ross Lopez and I kind of had the same outlook on how we felt about that question. So we sort of roll our eyes because we feel like it's a larger question that they're really trying to get to. Our other co-host, Lincoln, didn't really see it that way. He thought, why do you guys feel that way? And I said, because as a person of color, sometimes they're really digging deeper onto what's your background, what's your ethnic background. Has that ever resonated with you? Where are you from? Do you have thoughts about that?
Oh, always. I mean, it still happens to this day. I mean, I think when people ask, oh, so where are you from? They don't expect me to say Ohio. They always want to know
right.
what are you? Like, what's your ethnicity? Who's your daddy? Who's your mommy? You know what I mean? And
how do they fit into how are they going to fit into your situation?
Yeah, I think that's what it means. So it's not just where are you from, that like when white people ask other white people, they actually do mean Michigan, France, you know, Italy, whatever. But when a person of color is asked that question, that's not really the question. The question is, what are you? Like, what are you made of? What's your DNA? That's really the question.
Yeah, it's interesting. And we are on the Get Vocal platform here, which is joining us. Doug says, I agree with Steve. I already love you, Doug. When someone asks where I'm from because of my Southern accent, I've experienced the whole "you voted for the orange man" Southern stereotype. Oh, wow. We didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I mean,
thank you for widening our scope, Doug.
Yeah, I could definitely box you into literally where are you. And yeah, I mean, white people go through this too, just particularly in the last 4 years. You're biracial. And so what my other co-host was saying is that he's also biracial. Yeah. And his mom is Irish. And he says ultimately people are trying to figure out, what's your ethnicity? My other friend on the beach was he'll get Latinos sometimes asking him because they're trying to figure out, which he isn't Latino, he's or from Trinidad, and they're trying to figure out, they're trying to figure out like what part of Latin America he's from, and I just think it can be a whole thing. I mean, my other co-host thought like we were being a little defensive. I don't know. Does it bother you at all, or you're just kind of like, whatever, it's, a question that people ask?
I think I've moved past it, but I think there was probably definitely, when I was younger, I think it definitely affected me more, because also people always assumed I was of Hispanic descent. I remember being in New York when I was younger, and people coming up and speaking Spanish to me, asking me if I spoke Spanish. And even when I tell people what I am, they always say, "Oh, I thought you were Latin. I thought you look so, I don't know, Brazilian." They never want to, they actually, a lot of times they don't accept what I tell them, because it's not, yes. They have their own ideas of who I am and what I am. And they want me to, to say what they're thinking.
A good point, because I've had people, you're not Mexican. You don't look Mexican. They won't accept it, and they're saying you're Puerto Rican, right, or Brazilian. I'm like, no. They're like, you don't look Mexican at all. And I'm like, well, have you been to Mexico before? Because there's light-skinned people, there's everything in between, and I just think, we need to open our minds up a little bit. And to me, my whole point was I'm tired of these age-old questions, or be specific. If you really want to know my background, ask me what my background is. I'll tell you.
Yeah,
I won't bite.
I much prefer that. Hey, what's your background? Yeah.
Little known fact about you, which is a fun fact, is anybody that knows the Bear City trilogy, Bear City film, which I love. Doug, what's his last name? The writer, director, Doug Langway. You're Langway. Sebastian's in the first one, and you actually do play a Spaniard with a really good accent.
I mean, I did my best.
When you got that role and that was a part of it, did it make you nervous, or you just thought, I'll just figure it out?
No, it didn't make me nervous. I think at that time I was working on accents, and I was always going out for Hispanic stuff, even though I wasn't Hispanic. That was, if it was an ethnic role, it was Hispanic. It wasn't biracial. It was never, right. So I had a very difficult time actually when I was really pursuing acting in the traditional sense. Because I was always going in for Hispanic roles, and my representation sometimes wanted me to like just lie, like tell them my dad would have something, because they really wanted you to be Hispanic or whatever it was. So it was just so crazy because it was just another sort of like lie, another sort of way to be inauthentic, another layer of repressing my own authentic self down. You know,
Right.
it was all, I think it was another layer in sort of my, well, my journey of like breaking through that, but it definitely was, you know, affected me. I think affected me mentally in ways, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thanks for sharing on that. We've got to move on to our special guests, Ben and Logan. If you want to grab a spot, our special guests of the night, Ben and Logan. If you're watching this, Ben's wearing, well, you're both wearing glasses.
Yeah.
In my screen, Ben's on the left, Logan's on the right, but your names are there.
Yeah.
Welcome to Tags Live. Thanks for doing the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, fellas.
Hello.
Well, we couldn't help but not have you on the show, and I'm so glad you agreed to be on the show because both of you are in a polyamorous relationship. And Ben, I believe it was you that reached out to me to talk about it. And we've been communicating for about a month or so about this and finding kind of the right time. Just so people know, right now, Ben, you're in Boston.
Yeah, I live in Boston, but I'm currently in Florida. But yeah, I'm going back to Boston this weekend, but I live in Boston.
And then Logan, you're in Maine, correct?
Yep.
Which is, and you live there, yes?
Yep. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, first of all, I think the first question, and we're just going to round robin it. Sebastian, jump in there, but I'll ask that first question that everybody probably wants to know is whether we have ideas of it. How do you both identify polyamory and the whole term of it in general?
Babe, you want to take it?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting question, and it means a lot of things to a lot of people. And I think what you did first is a great thing, which is to just like ask folks about it. For me, it's basically about finding a way to creatively and collaboratively work with people that I'm really close to get all of our needs met in a way that's non-judgmental and in a way that, you know, allows everybody to find like what works best for them. And so I think that, you know, it can look like a lot of different things to a lot of people. But you can still have kind of that same mindset. And I think it's kind of about like finding what works and not necessarily about having one word be equated with one particular set of behaviors.
I love it. And we've got more questions, but Ben, how would you describe it?
Yeah, it's really similar. I mean, 3 years ago, I basically went through sort of like a life change moment, and I really stripped down the heteronormative belief system that I blindly adopted. It benefited me living a heteronormative life, but I felt not fulfilled. And then when I went through therapy and started asking really important questions, how do I define love? How do I define marriage and success and all that stuff? I really started to realize that I blindly adopted heteronormative and belief system that I can no longer relate to. And stumbled into polyamory through my therapy, and people I started to get to know within the community, and it made just a lot of sense. And it's something that has really been very fulfilling and very just really freeing, because you just really start living a really honest, transparent, truthful life, rather fitting in that box that makes other people comfortable, because I'm living in that mantra I don't live with shame. I'm very honest about who I am and who I love and how I love.
That's fact amazing. That you said, yeah, go ahead, Sebastian.
I was just gonna say, I mean, and there are a few things that resonated with me because you're speaking my language in many ways in your thinking. And what I love so much about what you said is that you started thinking for yourself and you started asking your own questions about what does this mean for me? Because sort of what I was talking about before with the queer community helping humanity break free of these constructs. And this is just another example of that, is that we do find these belief systems that we do blindly follow without any question, because our mom told us and our dad told us and their mom told them and their mom told them. And it's literally just ideas passed down that we just fall into believing. And then, so it's great to get to a point where you're like, wait, what do I believe? What do I want? How do I feel? What is love for me? And I think that is so, so important in moving us forward too. And I think it's so about expanding our consciousness and to realize that there's so much more potential and there's so much more available to us than what we were taught or what we have believed. And that's what I love about what you just said.
Thank you.
I love that. And Logan, I'm just curious, the one obvious question that I'm sure a lot of listeners might be wondering is, how does a open relationship that many people in our community have differ from a polyamorous relationship?
You know, I think actually, in some ways, the language of it kind of answers the question. Like an open relationship, there is a singular relationship that's sort of the central focal point, and it's open. There are other folks maybe who can come into it, but it's still kind of, there is this one, the focal point is this relationship. For the two people in that sort of relationship, that's the focal point, and everyone else kind of radiates out. I think that in the world of polyamory, we would refer to that as maybe kind of a hierarchical polyamory, where people will say, like, this is my primary partner, like this is the person that like I spend, you know, most of my time with, and other folks, you know, less so. And then polyamory is, and I think usually open relationships are there to facilitate sexual needs as well, and do sexual exploration or hang out with other people in like a fun, flirty way. But it's usually not there for the romance. And in fact, I think sometimes the inclination, the suggestion that romance is blossoming between two people, in that situation, that sometimes is like a problem. It's like, oh no, there's this intense connection. Is that threatening the relationship? Is it not? And I think polyamory, at least for me, is being comfortable with whatever that right way of connecting with that other person is. So, you know, if you go out and meet with somebody and you just want to have sex with them, like that's a really beautiful way to connect with a person. If you want to have coffee, that's great. If you want to fall in love and make really big promises to each other, and be romantic and you know, say like, I'm going to be there for you in really hard times, and sort of exchange that emotional weight. That's more, I think, the thing that might separate polyamory from what people might think of when they see an open relationship.
And Sebastian, I know you probably have a question, but before we do that, I just want to, offline, I was talking to you the other day on FaceTime, and people should know that, Ben, you are married to, you're married, you have a partner, a male partner.
20, been together 25 years.
Got it. And Logan, you refer to him as your primary partner, correct?
No, I wouldn't. Oh, so this is actually the term we talked about. I would refer to him as my nesting partner.
Nesting, yes. Thank you. And then before you go on, Logan, you have tell us about the relationship that you currently are in outside of the one with Ben.
So I've been together with him for a little over, like probably 6.5 years or so at this point. And we live together, and we've been living together for probably 6 of those 6.5 years. And and probably, and we've never been completely monogamous. We had threesomes. We were, you know, open to playing, you know, and all of that. But it was always together. And a few years ago, we kind of reached a really difficult point where we just like weren't able to meet some of each other's needs. Either it was at a place of like, either this need goes unmet for this person, or this person really takes on a big burden to provide that. And so we basically, through couples therapy, which was incredibly helpful, recommended for everyone, we worked out basically a framework to get some of those needs met. And originally they were sexual primarily, and we were thinking about going and hooking up with folks. But then actually he met somebody that he really fell into a serious relationship with. And that it was sort of the catalyst in a lot of ways for like, oh, we need to like take a step back, because when we're thinking about hookups, there were things like, it was like an open relationship, things like veto power. Like if you're going to hook up with someone who's just like a total sleazeball or whatever, like, and I just am not comfortable with that, then like, you know, that, yeah, you can veto them, like whatever, it's just a hookup. But all of a sudden it's like, I can't veto like my partner's boyfriend. Like that doesn't make sense. And he's not safe or respected, and he doesn't have agency in that relationship. So, you know, that was a big catalyst for us, a real turning point. Yeah. And so kind of that's the course that we've been on for the past few years.
Sebastian, did you?
No, I guess, I mean, the question, I guess, that I have is, you mentioned that you went to couples therapy. My question is, where do you also make time for like the relationship with yourself?
Yeah. And actually,
and how does that factor? Because that's even another relationship that you have to factor in.
Absolutely. And I actually think Ben probably can agree that actually sometimes your partner spending time with their partner gives you that alone time. We call them Logan nights in like the polycule, when Logan just like is home alone by himself and he purchases a burrito and smokes some weed and just like talks to no people, does no emotional like anything. But anyway.
Yeah, that's really important, because in a polyamory relationship you have, I mean, if you are in a multiple relationship, you need to make time for yourself. And that's the one thing that people might oversee, because you spend it with whatever partner you're going to, nesting partner, primary partner, and then your poly partner, but you put yourself on the list. And what I really like about my relationship with Logan is that we have a system down, that we see each other every 2 to 3 weeks. And when we see each other, we are consciously really present. But we're also present on a daily level, where we are communicating and share ideas and thoughts and how we are. And so there is a deep intimacy on a daily basis. But once we decide, when our schedules align, like you come to Boston, I come to Maine, or we go to another city, we just consciously show up. And that is just something really I like about polyamory, that there's a consciousness about it. While if being together with my husband for 25 years, there have been periods where we've just been passing ships, because life stresses really takes over. And once you start polyamory, which is such a, you learn how to communicate really effectively with all parties involved. Even so, I'm not intimately involved in Joshua's nesting partner, I do care about him very, 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 and I do think that his energy and how he and Logan interact is just beneficial to how Logan and I interact, and vice versa. So it's just sort of like this higher consciousness, and really kind of like this caring of these, whoever is part of that poly cube, not even if we have sexual relationship, but even respecting and acknowledging who's all part in this and what energies are brought together.
Well, one of the things that I love when we talked offline the communication that you just speak of, Ben, and I couldn't help but make the differentiation between language versus labels. And it feels like language, when you go into a polyamorous relationship, is utmost. You need to learn either the terms that are already out there in polyamory, but also just the terms that you guys formulate versus labels, which I'm sure the outside world wants to do. I couldn't help but wonder, how did both of you guys meet and figure out that you wanted to be in this? Because it's not, I mean, you don't really put that on Scruff or Grindr, I don't think, but tell us.
I am. I mean, I'm on these apps and I label myself as polyamorous, but in full transparency, I met Logan as a booty call. And I was vacationing in Maine and during COVID, and we met on a dating app and we hooked up. But the first night,
We've both been tested very recently and
Yes.
taken extreme
yes. All the
All of
COVID
those
testing
things.
that you have to do and STD and all this stuff. Yeah, we were. And then that first night, something clicked, and we started, after the hot sex, we started talking. And all of a sudden, it was 4 or 5 in the morning, and I'm like, why am I still talking? You know, what is it? And the next day we went our separate ways. But he was on my mind, and I was like, this was the most incredible night. But it was sort of like, what is it? Because I'm of a certain age. I'm 49, and Logan is 28. So I still was like, how is this even going to work? You know? And then we started texting and communicating, and it led to a second night. And the second night was even more intense, and just the conversation we had. And what I really liked about having done all the therapy and the research and talking to other poly-Cuban people prior to it, that whoever you meet, you're really open about it. And all of a sudden, the age differences does not really matter, because we did not connect based on that. We have so many different interests that we constantly talk about and nourish and explore. That was just something really, really surprising. And once we kept dating and interacting, we just realized there is something more than just our amazing sexual energy, but there is real love here, and we just on the journey of yes and openness and transparency.
Yeah.
I guess I have a question about, like, how do you balance everything? Because I can't imagine it's a lot of plates to be.
There's a calendar on
to juggle
our walls where we write down all of our.
They are organized. Let me tell you,
it's organization, and it's also understanding that it's really not. I mean, seeing us on a regular basis and showing up is definitely part of growing within a polyamorous relationship, but it's also just understanding. And there are many relationships involved besides me and my partner, Logan and his partner, our alone time. We also have work, we have families, all of that. And just because me and Logan live a very honest and transparent life, like me and my husband came out as polyamorous to friends and family, because Logan will never ever be introduced anything but my boyfriend or poly partner. He will never be, there's no shame behind it. And so having that freedom and living that honesty makes it really easy, because if there's a Friendsgiving, a birthday party, a milestone, he is there and he's embraced and he is loved by my friends. And so, and vice versa, Logan has opened up his life as well. So when he has his social gatherings and he invites me and I show up, and it's just sort of like making the time. But it's not a 24/7 physical relationship, but it's definitely a 24/7 intimacy relationship by just knowing
for sure
we're there to support each other, whatever it is, the good and the bad. Yeah.
How was that conversation with your family?
Well, my family, I came out to my mom probably 6 months ago or 8 months ago.
Oh, that's not very long ago.
Yeah, very long. And I just no. And she was just asking, because I was dropping off my husband at the train station because his poly partner also lives in Maine. And she's like,
well, that's convenient.
Yeah, exactly. So he was like, so he's going to Maine, but you're not going to Maine. I'm like, yeah, it's just, Andy's visiting his friend and stuff like that. And after the third friend mentioned, I was like, this is just not working. Because me and my mom, I came out when I was 14, the huge gay rights activist. There was never any shame in my household. I just would have came out. And the first thing she says, I love you, but let me just process this.
Sure.
And and then we started exchanging articles and exchanging stories and talking and texting. And so she's definitely right now in the path where she is very supportive and really doing the homework and the research. And I came out to my dad just 3 days ago. So, and that was way more easier than I thought it would be, because my dad is very into research and data, and because me and Logan have been dating almost for a year, he just sort of like took it. He's processing it, but he's also in the midst of field of researching it and sort of like, okay, this is what I'm seeing. These are the negative data I'm hearing, and I'm showing the positive data. So it's just really interesting. But Logan's family is phenomenal. So that is just like, they're like the best parents I have ever met. So
sorry, just clarification for me. You meant coming out as polyamorous.
Oh, polyamorous. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
At
first, I thought that you meant coming out as gay.
No.
Me too. Thank you.
And you said
No.
you came out at 14. So
I came out at 14. Correct. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Good clarification. Doug has a question. He's watching us live right now, and he asks the question, is it safe to say an open relationship is primarily driven by sex, and a polyamory more an emotional connection to more than one person? Logan, is that fair?
I would say that that's a pretty, that's going to cover most of your bases. That will point you in the right direction most of the time. And I think, it's that an open relationship is I think an open relationship in some ways is designed to allow for sexual interactions and explorations while protecting that relationship. And the thing you sometimes find with polyamory is a lot of times that the choices that lead you to the greatest intimacy and the greatest connection with one person can sometimes also feel like the biggest threat in the moment to that other relationship. And that's actually the moment of that other relationship where you like really have to like trust each other, and because like and just be like, yeah, but it could go badly. And if it goes badly, I guess we'll have to figure it out, but it could go really well, and we'll just have to trust each other.
Yeah,
and
I remember go ahead. Yeah, I remember
one
like,
thing. We won't be able to like trust each other if like you have veto power, say. Like that's not going to make us safer here. Anyway.
I remember writing a note on our call the other day that you guys, I think it was Ben that said you guys support each other's relationships outside of it. So in other words, Ben, your husband supports your relationship with Logan, and Logan, your person that you're with supports your relationship with Ben. Two questions on that. Could you then in polyamory have even like a third relationship? Is there no limit to how many you can have? It just means that to be more support, more communication, more planning.
I think one concept that is really nice to sort of revel in with polyamory is the concept of abundance. Thinking that like love can be abundant, and like love that you give to somebody is not less important if it's more abundant. And I'm sorry, I actually just totally lost my train of thought, but I really had a point there.
I would say that love in general is abundant. Like love is abundance, right? Yes. And poly means many.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel like this whole expression is about taking off limitation. Mm-hmm. So I think it can be anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like it could be anything that you wanted it to be. That's sort of, I think, the design of it, right? You actually touched on really what I meant by balance, not necessarily scheduling, but you were saying like the give and take between the relationships. That's kind of what I was meaning when I said balance, in the sense of like when something happens in one relationship that might affect the other relationship and vice versa, that delicate balance of that energy exchange must be something that needs attention and sort of like a delicate hand in many ways, because it's emotions and it's just emotions and thoughts and feelings between human beings. So that I feel like is really where a lot of the balancing and a lot of the work must come into play. And I don't mean work in a bad sense.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I mean, we, Logan and I sort of like are very emotionally available and very emotionally close, and we really just really show up, and there is not sort of like this pressure or facade of like we have to entertain each other, and it has to be always the honeymoon period. We have reached the level of just, you know, I have a shitty day, and let's really address that and be there, and or I need some alone time when we do scheduling, and let's say, Logan, you know, come from Wednesday till next Monday, and if he gets or I get to a point where it's like, you know what, let's make it Thursday, because Wednesday I need for myself. I need to really sort of to gather myself, because I've been stretched thin with my other relationship, with work, but I just haven't had time for myself. Even being aware of when you need your own time, or when, don't be afraid when you really need that other person. Say, listen, do you have a minute to talk? I just have that, something's on my mind. Let's just, you know, we hop on a FaceTime. Or if you really need to see that person prior a previous visit, like he drives down to Boston or I drive up or take the train really quickly for a day visit, everything's on the table. Just like tell your need and we figure it all out. And then once that is on the table, we talk to our prospective partners that, listen, yeah, I know I said I'm going to see Logan 2 weeks from now, but this weekend something came up and I'm going to go this weekend, and we're switching weekends. It's just sort of like being emotionally open.
Yeah,
I love it.
Communication for sure.
Yeah, it is.
I was just going to say that. Yeah,
being in a polyamorous relationship.
Yeah,
that like sounds like a disaster.
Yeah,
and that's one of the things I was going to say too. Is like, as I love communication, and I think it's the key to life in so many regards. I think one of the light bulb moments for me that I've been hearing is that it's challenging traditional hetero constructs. I think you said that, Logan, about hetero constructs. Or Ben, okay, and that just really makes sense. It's like we have these blueprints, age-old blueprints that we all grew up with. And I know offline, Sebastian, I've talked with you, in whether it was in Clubhouse or not, about just these constructs that don't LGBTQ, but we've had to somehow fit ourselves into these. And it really, it's really refreshing. I guess if I was to, you know, relay a question with that, is if someone's thinking about this going into, do you think about going into a polyamorous relationship? And what advice, besides obviously the communications, would you guys have for somebody considering going into a polyamorous relationship? Logan, let's start with you.
I'm gonna steal Ben's and just say read the 3rd edition of The Ethical Slut. It's a fabulous book.
I have it over. I'm gonna read it.
It's incredibly good and it's incredibly practical. I do think that doing a little bit of thinking about what you're looking for, and trying to learn from the experiences of others who have maybe had similar needs. You know, I think a really common thing that I see, and like we're on like a gay polyamory like Facebook group, a thing that people are always asking is like, how do I meet poly people? And it's like, that's not necessarily what you need. You can still like live your life in a certain way and think carefully about these things and understand what you're looking for and what you're comfortable with. You don't need to do that with someone else. And in fact, maybe you shouldn't bring all those huge unanswered questions into a really seriously committed romantic relationship.
Yeah, that goes back to what Sebastian was saying, as the personal work on yourself too, is kind of what you're alluding to. Ben, what's your thoughts on somebody that would be considering this?
Yeah, polyamory, definitely, I feel like just give it, what are your intentions? Like, what are you really trying to get out of it? If your first thought is more sex or automatic threesomes or foursomes, I would just take a step back and start reading, start joining Facebook polyamory oriented groups, and just listening and asking questions, because sex is all good, but it's not the foundation of polyamory. And just really know what your intentions really are, and why you're intrigued or why you're curious about it. Because we came out polyamorous before we even had polyamorous relationships, me and my husband, because we went through the therapy, we did the reading, we asked questions, we met poly people, and we really liked the structure and the potential it opens up. And then be honest about it. That's when we went on dating apps, filled out profiles, and mentioned poly proud or polyamorous. I mean, if you are able to label your tribe, just be honest about it. And then, because even as a single person, I'm still polyamorous, because I might be dating one person, but that person might be in a relationship. That still makes sense. And I still deal with that individual dating more than one person. So you need to really know the intentions, why you want to enter this. And then don't bring the concept of shame into it, because once you start hiding and separating and saying from in the bedroom, he's your lover, he's, whatever it is, but then you have to say, he's my friend, it just really complicates things. And I feel like that is not, if you're not comfortable standing in that poly skin, just don't do it.
Take your time.
Take your time.
I
couldn't help but go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, just on the topic of shame, another, I think, very shame-based reaction is to, if you're in a relationship and feeling these urges, is to cheat on your partner. And that's not what polyamory is about, because it is about communication, and like that you're not going to be able to be honest with yourself and go into such sort of a shameful place. And just like open up the conversation instead.
And Ben, I couldn't help but take a note when we were talking the other day. You said it's an investment in intimacy.
Yes.
And that kind of says it all. Ben and Logan, we want to thank you so much for really enlightening us all, because I know here we are, that I do this show 4 years and I still didn't know a lot, and you've really taught us a lot, and I hope our listeners really have learned some too. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, you. Guys. All right. Bye, you guys. All right. Cool. Wow. Really good, Sebastian, right?
Yeah.
And
great conversation.
Absolutely.
I
love it. No, I really did love it. Well, we only got a few minutes. And I have to ask you before we wrap the show, because you have a short film that you produce, star in, and it's going to be playing some film festivals. You play a priest in it who contacts who's HIV positive. And tell us a little bit more about that, and then where the film is headed and when we can kind of see it.
Sure. Yeah. This idea came about I'm going to say more than 10 years ago, actually, when I was living in New York. And I took this writing workshop for actors from this casting director at Playwrights Horizons. And it was back in the day when actors were doing one-man shows. So it was even pre like web series or digital series, however you want to label them. So that should give you a time frame.
Yeah, right. We won't put a number on it, but yeah.
But and then after the class, maybe you were going to have like a couple of ideas for a couple of characters for your one-man show. So one of the exercises was to research media and find an interesting article that jumps out at you and create a monologue based off of this article. And I don't know how it happened, but I just like stumbled into this Pandora's box of articles about priests with HIV. And I was just shocked that I had never heard of it. Like there was, and it had been going on since the 80s. And and articles about how the church actually would take care of these priests until they passed away. And but you know, how good they were at just like shoving it under the rug, as we know the Catholic Church is good at doing with any sort of scandal or any sort of behavior that they actually are so fighting against, I guess. Homosexuality being what I'm referring to. And so I wrote this, I found this article, I created this monologue, I wrote this monologue, and then I performed it in the class. And that was it. It sat on my computer, and I was positive at the time. And maybe that's why it flowed into my experience.
Yeah.
But I wasn't open at all. I mean, I was carrying that secret, like way buried deep inside. I wasn't talking about it to anyone. I mean, my partner knew, obviously, but I didn't ever talk about it with anyone, not in my family, my friends, nobody. So that, in one way, it was cathartic to write that monologue, because I was able to release some of my emotions surrounding being diagnosed through this monologue. So anyway, it sat on my computer, and then cut to about 4 years ago, and I'm working at a hotel in West Hollywood called Petit Hermitage on the rooftop. And the woman who is now my producing partner, we were working together, and we were on break, and we were talking about actor things. And I brought up this monologue, and she said that would make a great short. And I thought, wow, you're right. That would make a really amazing short. And so I told her I was going to write it, and I said, you need to produce it with me. And so she was like, hell yeah. So, but that was like almost 5 years ago. It's been a very long road. I took my time writing it, and I didn't want to do Kickstarters, because I had done two Kickstarters already with Hustling, and it's just like which is the digital series I created back in 2011 that ran for 3 seasons on YouTube. And it's just a lot of work. Sure. And I was just like, oh, maybe there's just another way. And I'm going to do this short film. I just want it to be a different experience. And so I raised some money on my own by reaching out to some big donors who had contributed to the Kickstarter for Hustling. And I did some grant writing, which I didn't get any of the grants, but I was able to really get really clear on my message and who I am as a filmmaker, and what my mission statement was as an artist and a filmmaker. And then I was at a pitch fest at this film festival, and I was pitching the series version of this short, because at the time I thought I wanted to develop it into a series. And I was pitching it to this exec, of a digital arm of this studio. And as I was leaving, he goes, why are you the person to tell the story? And I just said, because I'm positive. And he was like, oh, interesting. And then I moved to the next person. And in my head, I'm going, oh my God, I can't believe I just said that out loud.
You just said that, right? Yeah.
Said it to like someone in the industry. And then I saw I had a vision of like doing a Kickstarter and talking about being positive on the Kickstarter. And then I couldn't turn back, which is what we did. And then we shot it pre-COVID, and then we had to stop and then pick up the last day in August during the lockdown. But I went through such tremendous change in those first few months in lockdown. And so I just infused so much of my own story into it. And I was so grateful for that break, because the story changed, and I was really happy with how it turned out. And so now it's in festivals, and it's won like 7 awards so far. And it's going to have its first on-site screening the first weekend in September 5th. I think it's a Sunday, at the Dumbo Film Festival, and we already won Best Narrative Short. They have a bi-monthly competition, and then the films that win show at the festival in September. So I'll be one of the films, since we won one of the competitions. We'll be screening the film at the Dumbo Film Festival in September. So I'll be going to New York for that, and I'm really, really excited. So that was a very long-winded story.
Thank you for telling that. I will be there September 5th, along with my sister. She'll be here. The film is called Disciple, and I've seen it already. I think, and it's
I don't know if you've seen
amazing.
this latest cut though.
Oh, okay. Well, then
Yeah.
I'm going to wait to see the latest cut. But what I
sure.
saw is amazing. You can follow Sebastian on Instagram at lacause_I am. lacause_I am. He also has a podcast, Chasing Happy, available wherever you get your podcasts. It's a narrative about your own story, actually. It's really good. Check that out, Chasing Happy. Any last words before we wrap it up, Sebastian?
No, I would just about Chasing Happy, that it's like a limited series podcast. It's a nonfiction, serialized tale. It's really my tale of transformation and truth. It's my personal tale of truth and transformation. And yeah, I'm really proud of that. That came about during the lockdown, and yeah, it was also a very cathartic experience too, and hopefully it's helping others, as you know, when they listen to it, to hear my story and just being able to finally stand in my truth. And
I was going to say truth, yeah.
And being my authentic self, really, for the first time in 50 years, is really liberating. And I've been just funneling it all into my work. So
I love it.
It's a very creative, fun time for that.
Sebastian Lacause, thank you so much for being my special co-host. He'll be back for some other stuff soon. In the meantime, follow us on Instagram, Tags Podcast. DM us. We give sex and relationship advice, solicited or not, at Tags Podcast. In the meantime, continue having hot gay sex, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.